Good morning, Kyle. How are you?
Good morning, Donnie.
Doing well?
Oh, living the dream right now, man.
Are you?
Yeah, I get to talk about PlayStation stuff. I'm stoked.
Oh, this is good stuff. This is going to be titled PlayStation Experience 0, or as I call it, PSXP Outbreak Day.
Oh,
that's good. Yeah, I like that. I was like, oh, that's good. That's gold. Podcast gold. That's what we live for. My name is Donnie Reese, and here on this episode of PSXP 0, it's kind of like a special episode. We didn't really know how we were going to release it. We've done this so over the years. We have game-focused shows where we want to just dive into one specific game or do like a review or things like that. And I brought Kyle here with me, as you heard already. So hi, Kyle.
Hello, sir.
Bored with video games. To be honest with you, there's not much like that I can set up. I just want to talk about The Last of Us.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that at all.
That's all this comes down to. We had the trailer that came out last week, and I just couldn't get enough of all of the talking, all of the podcasts, all of the coverage, and I wanted to go on PSVG, and they said no. I don't even think they even talked about it. I got to listen to you talk to Josh about it, which I just wanted to be there so I could talk. And I was like, we're going to do this. We are retooling our PlayStation show. So the PlayStation experience has been kind of in I don't know, hibernation. It's just kind of been on hiatus here for the last couple of weeks as we look to bring in some new folks. We have a new host, might do some new music. We've got some new things that are coming out. We're hoping to kind of, I don't know, relaunch, rebrand, or just kind of get it going again after... Seth and Justin are still here. They're not leaving or anything like that. It's just really, really busy. Seth and Justin just had a kid. Seth's got school and family, and we just needed some juice. We got to get some juice back into that product. So hopefully you will be hearing from those guys very soon. Guys and girls, maybe. I don't know exactly what I can say. I can't announce names or anything. All I can announce is that there will be a weekly PlayStation show coming back to the PSVG Podcast Network very soon.
Which I'm very excited about.
Me too.
So this is awesome.
I mean, they've got a lot of runway ahead of them. I mean, it's a big year. It's a big year for PlayStation. So that's where and at first, like as folks' involvement ebbs and flows, I'm always like, look, don't force it if you're not doing it. Like, take some weeks off, go monthly, but not now. Now I'm like, no, we can't let this, we can't do this now. Like, we're about to launch a new console.
Right.
We need people talking about it.
Just because everyone who works at PlayStation is leaving doesn't mean that our PlayStation podcast can leave for a while.
Yeah, I need somebody to tell me all these people's names and what they mean in it. Who's replacing it? Anyway, let's get on with the show proper. It's early. We're recording early, so if I sound like I just woke up, it's because I just woke up. I just slammed my coffee mug into my microphone. That was what you just heard. That's new for me. That's a first. Kyle, I want to talk about The Last of Us. I want to go over some of the timeline here because I think it's very interesting. All right. The Last of Us, the game, was released in June 14th, 2013. By the time we get the sequel, part 2, it'll have been almost 7 years. Yep. That feels like forever.
It does feel like forever, definitely. Keeping in mind, though, for Naughty Dog, there was, Last of Us DLC, Uncharted 4, Lost Legacy, and now this. So it's not like they're not doing anything.
No, absolutely not. No, they've been cranking out stuff, and I think that's why. I actually think that's why it feels more like forever. I think compared to other studios in the PlayStation, they crank out games. Like, that's what they do. And a lot has been said about that and crunch and all that, but they crank out games.
Yeah.
If you'd have told me when I bought my PlayStation 4 that I wouldn't be playing The Last of Us Part 2 until 2020, I wouldn't have bought it. I'm not lying. Like, I would have been like, I'll wait. I'll just wait, because I was sure the day that I picked that up, 2-3 years tops, I'll totally be playing this game.
Were you surprised then that they went Uncharted 4 instead of Last of Us 2?
I was, only because at that time, I don't follow the inside knowledge as much as you, so you can probably correct me here, but at the time, I believe what we learned from like Grounded and a lot of the news coverage of Naughty Dog after The Last of Us is they split into two teams. They're almost running dual studios.
Yep.
So I thought that those games were being developed in conjunction with one another. And then Amy left, and there was all kinds of rumors and scuttlebutt about the thing. And then it seems like Neil and Bruce stepped in, and they started Uncharted and they finished Uncharted.
Yeah.
And that probably delayed, this project.
I think that's pretty certain that happened. Though, afterwards there has been conversation as to whether they even thought they were going to do a second one. It seems like potentially there was some resistance to do it, whereas others had ideas right away about what a second one could be. So I don't know that they were definitely jumping into development of the second one. Excuse me. But I do think there was probably something else going on along with Uncharted 4 for a while.
Sure. I could also imagine that they may have, like, and I'm just postulating here. I'm literally just guessing, hypotheticals. I could see this game being something that they rewrite a lot. Mm-hmm. Judging on what we know about it now, which we're going to get into this trailer and whatnot, what we think we know anyway.
Right.
Like there's a lot that's gone into this, a lot. So it's taken its time. I'm okay with having waited. I can't wait to play it. It's something that I'm pretty sure if you go back in PSVG's archives, I'm pretty sure you can find me at some PlayStation experience, some E3 thing being like, we're going to play The Last of Us in 2015. It's going to be 2016. I'm telling you, 2017 at the latest. It's got to be 2018, right? 2019? Like it's got to be there. It's got to be there year after year. Me saying that this game's going to come. They dropped the remaster June 29th, 2014. So that was, shortly thereafter the launch of the PlayStation 4, which I think a lot of people replayed. We see that from the sales numbers. Mm-hmm. They unveiled Part 2 at the PlayStation Experience in December of 2016. This was the trailer where we saw Joel and we saw Ellie, and she was sitting on the bed playing guitar. Yep. And very cinematic. We got a gameplay trailer, or at least, no, a cinematic trailer at Paris Games Week in October of 2017. So we've been hearing about this game. We've been seeing this game for 3+ years now at this point, like with all these different trailers and these breadcrumbs that they kind of been dropping along the way. This trailer was the one where it was like a torture scene. It was raining. Yep. I will never forget seeing this because when I saw it, I was like, it's got to be The Last of Us. Just because of the tone, like the way it looked. Right. It's got to be The Last of Us. But we didn't see any recognizable character.
Correct.
And we didn't know who they were. And it's pretty brutal, actually. It's a very brutal trailer. Yeah. And that's when I was like, oh, I don't know what this game... This trailer still sticks out to me as I don't think I know as much about The Last of Us 2 as I think a lot of people think they do. Right. It's like a weird thing. Every time I feel like I've got a good hold on what we're about to see, I remember this trailer and that there's all these people and these things that are happening that I don't know. Yeah. And if I recall correctly, there's a lot of people that have postulated maybe that the lady in the trailer was Ellie's mom. Yep, that was very Joel's common thought. Wife, and like there's a lot of it could be backstory, it could be brand new characters, but this is, it's completely different. And then we finally saw the gameplay reveal trailer at E3 last year. This is the barn trailer where we're introduced to Dina and Ellie, and I just rewatched this trailer. As much has been said about this trailer already on Board of Video Games. Can you like just lay that out for me and as to what the...
So, and this isn't a thought unique to, Josh is definitely the person who talks about this often, but it's definitely not a thought unique to him. Because there was even other developers who were commenting on this after the gameplay reveal trailer.
I remember thinking it when we were watching it.
That this can't be real. This can't be what the game is like. This can't be how the animations are. This can't be a genuine, honest representation of what we're going to be playing when this game releases. So, there's a lot to do about game trailers, and whether is it okay to be aspirational?
Sure.
Is that a thing you can do? If this is what we are trying to do, or this is what we are trying to achieve.
Yeah.
Are they trying to, when showing a gameplay trailer, is it okay to be tonally, this is what we're trying to set? We're trying to set like addressing or an understanding of what this world and environment are going to be like, or is that being dishonest? You know, and I think it's a difficult situation for game developers to be in, especially if you think about, well, right now, yeah, this works, but then if the scope of the game gets so big that we can't quite process as many frames or whatever else, we have to cut things back.
Sure.
Because things change totally in game development. So I'm maybe a little more forgiving for all people, like in all developers when it comes to this, because I tend to think of trailers as aspirational. This is what they want to accomplish. And I make my final judgments when we see release trailers and things much closer to release about what the game is actually going to look like.
But yeah, advertisements. They're just advertisements. That's all they are.
Yeah. And I don't think they should purposefully be misleading.
Sure.
I don't think they should do. And maybe I am just too positive thinking that they would never purposely do that. But yeah, like you said, their advertisements and for me, I just see them as aspirational of what they're trying to accomplish.
And yeah, I mean, their job when they show us these game slices is to get us excited and to get us invested into the development and hopefully to buy the product. So, you don't want to see like dev kit footage of things being broken. Like you don't want to show that. You don't show that. But I understand a lot of people will always pull out the comparisons, and we have Digital Foundry to do all the hard work for us, and we can see that.
And they have a little bit with, the most recent trailer compared to that. And they didn't say much about it because they didn't have direct feed. They weren't playing themselves. They couldn't run the stuff themselves. But initially, looks pretty promising. So
I watched this trailer this morning, right before we recorded. And a few things stuck out with me. But just to keep it on this topic, I don't know if what they showed was actually game like running. The animations and everything feel very, very fluid. But I also think that I think Naughty Dog has significant chops. I would probably call them the best studio in the business. If they're not the best, they are as equal or right there with anybody that I think you could, put up there.
Right.
There were moments in Uncharted 4 where the game goes from scripted cutscene animation to gameplay that you don't realize you now have control of the character. So I've already had that experience. So when they show it to me, so like when Ellie is holding an infected and she's got a knife in like the side of its neck, and then she lays it down and then she starts walking into the forest, that feels very Uncharted. That feels Naughty Dog. Like I've seen that animation before.
Oh yeah.
So it's like, I think that's real.
Well, and for better or for worse, Naughty Dog as a studio has always favored, or at least in their recent pedigree, favored animation and fluidity of animation over tightness of combat, right?
Sure, yes. Yeah.
So
definitely.
I think they definitely are willing to potentially sacrifice your ability to have that's the one knock on Naughty Dog games usually is the combat. I think they're willing to sacrifice that a little bit to ensure animation's complete and like all of those things happen. So those things might be real, but when you play the game, you might realize it's not exactly actually how you would want it. And, and that's the thing we'll have to wait and find out.
Another thing that trailer showed us like proning. She gets down in the grass. Yep. She crawls under a truck. Yep. You see the enemy AI talk to one another and hatch a plan to find you. These are all things that are confirmed by the latest trailer, which is absolutely real.
Right.
So even if it was aspirational or like canned video that they layered a HUD over, I think they've made good on their promise, because you see in the latest trailer, the environments look incredibly lush and beautiful, and proning and running around and having some agency in these areas looks incredibly, like player choice. Like it looks like it runs well and the enemy AI is there.
Right.
So whether or not that trailer was real or not, we won't know until we play the game.
Yep.
I'm going to say it was. I think it was. Having watched, I think it's weird because when you watch that first trailer back then, I wasn't alone. I remember when we were watching, I was like, man, this might be a PS5 game. Because at the time, we hadn't seen anything on PlayStation 4 that looked like that. Not even Uncharted 4 looked that good.
No.
But then you see the trailers that came out last week, and they're absolutely PlayStation footage. We've had people hands-on. They've played it. They all confirmed it. Having seen what they just showed off, I mean, yeah, I think it's totally plausible.
Yeah. And, you know, I did watch I watched all the trailers, previous trailers to prep for this, and then, you know, really honed in on that E3 trailer and the most recent one. And maybe I'm just getting too old. It's really hard for me to notice these minute differences that other people catch these days. And I just might be getting too old that I can't tell anymore, that it just looks really nice. And it looks like something I want to play. I'm
always wondering, like, if I'm just so bought in that I don't, like, you don't watch with that kind of eye.
And that could be. I 100% could be having a fanboy bias for this 100%. Yeah. I fully admit that. But, you know, in looking at it, it just looks like it looks really good. So. Yeah.
So last week we got the State of Play, and they dropped a new trailer, and we're going to talk about that a lot. So I'm just going to move on. But again, to refocus, the reason why I asked if you wanted to have this conversation is it dawns on me, PSVG started in February of 2016. 3 years after we played The Last of Us. I have replayed this game multiple times. We've talked about it, not in depth, but we've mentioned it over the years of how much we enjoy this game or like this game or replaying the game or looking forward to the new game. But we've never actually sat down and talked about The Last of Us. We've never had a conversation on PSVG, not just us, anybody. I don't think anybody has ever actually sat down and talked about it because it's never been in the news. It's never been in the buzz, you know, while we've been doing this. And I really wanted to. So that's what I wanted to do. I want to talk about The Last of Us. Just we'll comb through the trailer. We won't like break it down beat by beat. There's plenty of coverage. I've already done that this past week. I want to start by talking about the first game. Most people have listened to our network for a while. They already know this game is top tier for me. Favorite game of all time, favorite game PlayStation. I mean, it's right there. I always say it's Breath of the Wild, it's Wind Waker, and it's The Last of Us. And there are no other games that come close to these three in my mind. Whenever somebody goes, what's your favorite game? I have 3 games to offer, and that's it. And up until the Breath of the Wild came out, it was 2. I had 2 games. There were 2 games that I thought were way better than anything else. And to say that I've been excited about The Last of Us Part 2 is just kind of an understatement. I can't get enough of it. I'm so excited to go back to this. And I think it's really, really cool that you and Josh are actually going back to this now. Josh is going to be playing The Last of Us for the first time. He just started last night.
He did.
I want to talk about this for a minute. Now, I hope he doesn't listen to the show until he beats the game, because we're going to talk spoilers, or at least it's probably going to come up. So, Josh, just know that if you listen to it, things might be spoiled for you.
Yes.
I'm hesitant or reluctant to hear his thoughts about playing The Last of Us, because I've said this a bunch. I feel like it's so hard to appreciate what The Last of Us was when it launched on PlayStation 3 in 2017, 2018, or 2019. Because The Last of Us, in my opinion, changed how PlayStation looks at launching internal exclusive games.
Oh, for sure.
And at the time, The Last of Us was, when it launched on PlayStation 3, at the time, in my opinion, it was just a blockbuster. It was a juggernaut. It blew everything away. There were no game that I felt like went as far, had as much polish, looked as good, did what it was trying to do as well. Third-person action game like The Last of Us did. But now, after Horizon and after Spider-Man and all that, now when you go back, it definitely, like, it shows its age. Like, you realize this is an older game, you know? And that's why I'm really excited about The Last of Us Part 2, because I think they're going to, like, you can see that that's the brass ring that they're reaching. They're trying to one-up all of the other things that they've done, of course. That's their business, but I'm a little reluctant, because I feel like I'm bracing for the Bored with Video Games episode where Josh goes, I don't understand why Donnie likes this game so much.
And that might happen, but, you know, and that's okay, because not everyone needs to like every game, and that's totally cool. There are, I think, some legitimate beefs that can be had with The Last of Us as far as the game goes, but overall, I think it is an absolute masterwork of a game. And again, that could be my bias showing. I do enjoy Donnie Dog, but I actually prefer Uncharted to The Last of Us. Just because I was with the characters longer. I like the pulpy action of what Uncharted is. The Last of Us is a excellent game. I don't know. It's hard to be like, oh, I liked playing it, is an experience, and I'm going to do it again. Since Josh is replaying, I said I would play it again, and I have played it completely through, I think 3 times total. So this would be 4, I think. So obviously I like it quite a bit.
Yeah.
But for me, I really enjoy the game. I don't think I'm as high on it quite as everyone else is, but I still think, especially from a storytelling perspective, from the nuances with the characters, I think they do a lot of things really, really well. And I think a lot of the foundation there obviously was, built with what they did with Uncharted. But yeah, I still think it is one of those games that sets apart, like you said, what PlayStation first parties can do, and really kind of did start to set the groundwork for PlayStation first party games that are basically now third-person action games. Some of them bigger, some of them smaller, but that's about it. I
think after The Last of Us, Shuhei or somebody, Layden, whoever, they clearly said, we need to make more of these. Mm-hmm. That's absolutely what happened, because now they just crank them out studio after studio, and it's great. They sell. People like them. Single player focus. Like they kind of have the market cornered on this. Yeah,
they really do. They make them, they pretty much make the best of these types of games. So,
they do.
And that's probably why I gravitated towards PlayStation, because that is my favorite genre of game.
So, the first game, I feel like when a lot of people, I don't really want to review it. I don't even know if I even want to say this. Typically, when people point out negatives about the first game, it's typically aimed at the gameplay.
Yep.
The gameplay isn't, the shooting isn't as tight as other shooters. I even myself, I think they do the whole ladder cart trick way too much to pull that Uncharted thing. There's a constantly go pick up the ladder, pick up the board, bring it over here, do the puzzle.
Apparently, Ellie can't swim.
Conveniently,
yeah.
So I realized that at the time, though, I never thought of any of that when I played it, because at the time, I don't know. Maybe it was wrong. Maybe I just didn't have as much chops in terms of playing a lot of things. I was in college when this game came out and when I played it, so I wasn't playing as many things as I was playing now. But man, I'm trying to put myself back in my shoes when I played it in 2013. In 2013, when I played The Last of Us and beat it, the shooting was as good as most third-person shooters that I can remember playing. Maybe something was maybe marginally better, but it wasn't like it was egregiously bad to play. At the time, I thought it played as good as anything else that I've ever played.
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to, kind of like I said before, just the finishing of animations and things. It's not quite as snappy and tight. The animations are longer, I think, in general.
Sure.
So it seems like your ability to get into cover and then snap and shoot and things like that seem longer and more laborious as you're going through them. And
I gotcha.
You could argue, if you wanted to, that like people do for Resident Evil games all the time, or the old Resident Evil games, well, that's what leads to the atmosphere. That's what makes it feel.
And in a lot of ways, that's what I'm thinking of. When I'm trying to think of like similar games, this game shoots as well as any Resident Evil game has ever shot.
Yeah.
The shooting is just as good as any of them, in my opinion.
Which is funny, because I went back and tried to replay Resident Evil 4 for the first time in a while, and man, the shooting in that game is trash.
That's why it's best on Wii, because of the pointer controls. It's best on Wii because of that. So that's what I'm thinking. It's weird. It's I don't want to sound like a fanboy, but I'm gonna say it. I feel like when people say those types of things about The Last of Us, I think it's a post-reaction. I think it's more of a reaction to people like me going, this is my favorite game of all time. Mm-hmm. So there are people trying to find something really bad to say about it. And it's not that I say, I'm not trying to make the case that the shooting is the best in the world. That's not what I'm trying to say. I think you can point out gameplay flaws. The AI, Ellie never getting seen and thing I'm totally fine with that. I just don't think in comparison to what games were like on the PlayStation. Have you booted up a PlayStation 3? The OS barely runs. Have you played some games like that? If you go back and play some games, go play Resistance and stuff like that. At the time, I was like, man, this is as good as it gets.
Right. Well, and I think the things to consider too is, Ellie never gets seen. Could you imagine how frustrating it would be if she did get seen?
Yeah.
Well, make the AI better. That probably is the best they could do at the time. So there are saying that, yes, the combat isn't great or isn't as good as the rest of the game, obviously there's always going to be a weakest part.
Yeah.
So, and in that game, that is the weakest part of it, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad.
But the stealth and the melee combat and the gameplay of that,
Whew.
that's as good as, like, I'm not a stealth connoisseur. I haven't played
Right.
them all. But the stealth games that I did play, I've played a little Splinter Cell in my day. I've played some stuff. Man, that's as good as it gets. At least I thought that. My opinion, at the time it released, all this stuff was top class.
Yeah, I think the stealth is good for sure. And for better or for worse, I think often third-person action games, often when it comes to shooting, get compared to things like Gears of War.
Yeah,
And these games are so different.
Very different.
But does the shooting feel anything like that? No, it very clearly does not.
Yeah.
And the snap into cover and all those things, and it's just a completely different style of game.
I don't even like shooting in The Last of Us too much.
Yeah.
I'm a strict melee player most of the time. If I can melee kill folks, I'm going to. Like, that's been established.
And I definitely do that too. Like, if I pull out my guns, it's a last resort type of situation.
It's
for me.
things have been spotted, things are falling apart, and I've got to make some room. I got to give myself some space. Most of the time, I'm trying to play this game like Steven Seagal. Man, I am in and out of every little box and behind every little corner and wall. Like, I'm trying to be silent.
I like how that's where you went with that with Steven Seagal.
I'm just trying to think of those movies, man. I'm like cart to cart, like trying to hide. It's very different when I'm playing Uncharted, because when I'm Uncharted, I am run and gun. I am just tossing grenades and pulling out machine guns and just clips and clips and clips. But this game, and I think it goes to the atmosphere that the game, because that's what I want to start with, really. So I've got the notes that I put up for like just some talking points that we're looking at. On my desk here, I just wrote down some thoughts that I want to try and cover. The first thing that I wrote, and I don't think this should come as a surprise considering what I do, and some of the things that I gravitate towards, like with horror movies and Into the World movies, is that I am incredibly infatuated with the world building and the environment and the setting that The Last of Us has. I love that nature has reclaimed cities and has taken over, and I think it makes for a gorgeous set piece. It's probably might be the first thing that when I first saw it at whatever E3 they unveiled, I want to say 2011 maybe. I remember that trailer where they had he was dragging Ellie around, on the board.
Yep.
Yeah. I was so enthralled, and I was like, this is the game I've always wanted. Because we've had post-apocalyptic games, but in a lot of ways, those like the zombie games and stuff, like you don't really get to see society a whole lot. Like if you, I'm going to keep using Resident Evil because it's just on the mind, but when you play Resident Evil, like you just have zombies. Yep. And you just have houses, and they look like if you remove the zombies, they just look like houses. Maybe a car's on fire or something like that's maybe as atmospheric as we really get, like some rain. But this is like, no. Society has collapsed. Buildings are falling apart. Plumbing has exploded, like it's flooding streets and cauldrons, and like they're collapsing into each other, and the vegetation has overgrown parts of it, and just the way it looks visually, just the environments, just hooked me from the very start. And I still think it's absolutely gorgeous. Even the gory or gruesome parts of the games, the infected, the cordyceps virus, I think it's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning to watch. Their zombies are better than other zombies. Like, it's not just the Romero, like they took an idea when they totally made it their own. And they gave it a whole different look and a whole new thing, and it just refreshed the whole thing for me. So it's not just another zombie game. It's completely different. Stands completely aside, and I was so infatuated with it.
Well, and I think for me, a big thing about this is there is this other drama going on in a world that happens to have cordyceps in it, right? Yeah. Kind of in some ways almost like it's a little bit different than The Walking Dead, because The Walking Dead, you don't really ever find out like why things happen, but it's about the stories that are happening in that world.
Parallels.
Here you find out a little bit about it, but it's the stories about these people trying to survive in this world that this thing is going on in, and it's more about these people than it is. I don't want to spoil the first one a little bit.
We're going
to. Obviously, they're looking. They're trying to figure out what the deal with Ellie is. Like that's the thing they're trying to figure out. But I almost think about it in the same context. I think of a show. This is going to be a stretch, probably, like Battlestar Galactica, right? Sci-fi show. It's in space, but they never really talk about the fact that they're in space. It's about just happens to be a drama set in space, and it's how do you deal with those situations as a result of that. That's it. That's all that it is. And it's just, these stories are the same stories that we would have in our time, but just set in a different place, in a different setting that you would. So for me, that's, I think, why and especially the opening of the game, it really gives you a grounding in what this is like. And that first 15 minutes of that game helps you understand Joel as a character better than just about the beginning of any game has helped you understand a character ever. It really helps you understand who Joel is, what his potential motivations are, what his hangups would be as a result of that. But I think and that's where I think it really, argue if you want to whether video games can tell good stories and all that compared to movies and books. I think this is why everything just fits. They did a great job of making everything make sense in the world that they created. Thematically, things work for that world.
Sure.
And that's one of my biggest, as someone who plays a lot of board games, I care a lot about theme in board games and that the mechanics and mechanisms fit the theme of what the board game has done. And I think for this video game with The Last of Us, Naughty Dog does that spot on. Everything fits with the world that they're in.
I think the people that really love this game, they're always going to go first to the story. So let's just go ahead and get into it. I love that the game's design, both mechanically and story beat wise, through the set pieces that they play, through the things that you're doing, it constantly challenges what I think is like, it constantly challenges you, like, your own morality. It's constantly making you do things that you probably don't want to do a whole lot of. And I love that about this game. And I think it adds to the constant tension that you're feeling. You can't be the hero. Like, you can't just come and save the world and move on. It's not like Red Dead where you can't be the white hat. You've got to do bad things. You have to survive. Like, this world is all about survival. It's a gruesome and gritty and hard world to live in, and to do it, like, nice guys finish last. You've got to do these bad things. And it provides so much weight. And when you replay it now, compared to, like, again, the medium has moved on so much, it almost feels like light. Like, it's almost like somewhat lighthearted. And from the trailers, we talked about the trailer they showed at Paris Games Week, and then the trailer they showed last week, it looks like they're just going to double down on that aspect for this new game. And I don't know if people are going to like that. I don't think they are. I think it's going to really challenge what they're willing to sit through, because they're going to be like, I don't really want to see this. I don't want to do this anymore. Right.
And I think, though, for better or for worse, I think that's a good thing.
Because so do I.
If everyone just thinks your thing is okay, no one's going to care about your thing. But if people love your thing and alternatively hate your thing, that, as an artist, like, that is how you're going to get attention and get eyes to you. Not saying they're doing this just because they want that.
No. But they're trying to tell this story. And I love that they appear. We've got to play it first, and I mean, knowing what we know from the first one and just knowing what I know about Neil, having listened to him, they're not going to make any concessions. And that's the most fun part about this, is they are totally going to do exactly what they want to do. Writers, media, reaction be damned. They don't care. And if they want to tell you a gruesome story that really gets you some real life things to think about, like, they're putting you in this world. This is what this world is like. It's not going to be nice. There is blood. Like, there is gore. Like, there's gruesome moments. That's a part of this world, and you're going to have to, if you want to get to the end of it, you've got to go through it. And I respect it a lot. I don't think a lot of developers would even have the goal to take on something like that.
Yeah, I think they're one of the few developers who probably have the ability to do that. I think they probably have a pretty blank check, if you would, for them to do what they want to, for the most part. Yeah,
definitely earned it. We talked about a little bit of the infected. One of the other notes that I have here is just how much more dangerous, like, humans felt, which I think adds to a lot of the world and the story when you encounter humans, because that's not something you do a whole lot of. The cast for The Last of Us is kind of small. Yeah, it's a handful of characters or so. And you'd think that maybe there's more, and like there's a big part of me that wants to like just dive into a Last of Us lore and talk about what happened, what we don't know. But I don't want to do that. But there's like you meet these people, whether they be enemies or friendlies. You meet a handful of people along the way,
right?
And they seem so much more dangerous than any of the infected, and that's saying something because the infected, especially clickers, when you first come across a clicker. In 2013, this game scared the death out of me. Like when I heard that clicking noise, I was like crouching down and hiding. They're gonna get me.
Oh, yeah. Well, and of course, and I don't want to derail us because you go talk about that clicking noise, and then immediately I go to the sound design and the music, and oh my gosh,
it's so good. And because you're playing as this caretaker, if you will, you're Joel, and you've got this like it. And I felt like because of what they set up with Sarah, and now you've got Ellie. I don't think, like it adds even more weight to that because when the clickers when I did get into that subway tunnel, or when I did get in to an infected area, especially when my vision was blurred or it was hazy or dark, I like it really set the mood. I was like, whoa, let's take it slow. I don't want anything to happen to her. Like it gets you there. I really like it. And then when the humans there, they lay traps, they talk to each other, they work with each other. Like again, like these are type of elements that I can't imagine, or I can't remember other games having in them. I do want to get into the story. I want to talk about. I don't want to spend the entire time talking about the first game, but I do want to talk about the story a little bit because I know a lot has been said about it. I've probably listened to all of it, and a lot has been said about the ending of this game.
Yeah.
I'm going to spoil it now, so if you don't want to hear it, we'll just like stop now and come back later. Josh, don't listen from this point forward if you haven't beat the game yet. So Ellie's immune to the virus. That's what we find out about her, and we carry her along this journey across America. And at the end, we have a chance possibly to save mankind. We don't know. We have a chance. It's a risk, but we have a chance.
Yep.
And instead of saving mankind, Joel decides to save Ellie. So instead of trading Ellie's life for all of humanity, he makes a selfish decision to keep Ellie around.
Yep.
My take on this ending was that, or my take on this journey, if you will, this entire game, my take on it is that Ellie saves Joel. That's how I always looked at it. When I see Joel, when we meet Joel, he's just broken. Like Sarah has broken him. He is without hope. He is a bad guy. He is a smuggler. He is on the fringe of the law. He's in this quadrant. What do they call it? The just safe zone. Yeah. But he doesn't listen to the rules. He's doing all this backstory, and he just doesn't care. Like he really just looks like he could die. Like it's amazing he just didn't shoot himself because he's completely broken. And it's his journey through Ellie that I look at it as it gave him hope and love again. And that's why he made the decision. Everybody else be damned. It was just too much. Like she brought him so far back from that that he couldn't go back to that. Because if he killed Ellie, he probably just would have killed himself. That was my original take on the game. It's always kind of been my take on the game. I know other folks have riffed on it, and I love it. That's the greatness about the ending of the game, is it leaves it so much open to interpretation.
Right.
How did you feel about just the story, the big story macro level like that?
I actually, when I think about the end of that game and how everything went with that, I think about the conversations. I'm not a parent, but the conversations I've had with parents of what would it take for you to do something that would result in your own child perishing, but it would save 10 people, 100 people, 1,000. What's the number?
Yeah.
What's the number that's enough?
Yeah.
And no parent, and every parent has told me there's no number that's enough. It doesn't matter. There's no way I could ever do that. And that's, for me, maybe it's way too simple, but that's what I see this as. That Joel could not save Sarah. Be damned if he was not going to save Ellie.
Gotcha.
Because he can.
Yeah.
He has the chance. And he already made that sacrifice one time, and he's not going to do it again. So whether you want to look at it as that is him, quote unquote, saving Sarah, actually, or however you want to look at it. And like I said, maybe that's too simplistic, but that's really when I think about so. That. I think of someone who looks at Ellie as his daughter and no price is too great to pay.
Plus, it wasn't a sure thing.
Right.
The risk
there was
didn't,
no guarantee.
Yeah, the risk didn't outweigh the, like, if they said 100%, this is it, we have the cure, maybe his decision would have been different. I don't think so, but maybe it would have. But like they give you that little inclination of disbelief. They're like, do you know? And we don't know until we actually, then you can't kill her. You don't know. Like he's all like, figure it out later. Like he thinks there's more time. It doesn't have to be so urgent. We don't have to do this right away. Let's do some more. But, they don't. So he gets put in a jam. He gets jammed up against it. Before we break from that, because I want to talk about how TLU 2 might pick up where that left off. Just a couple more things I wrote down. The side stories that The Last of Us had with like Ish and Ezra and the notes and the artifacts, all of that plays into how I felt from the global story of Ellie and Joel and from the bigger global story of this outbreak. Like this, you have all these different layers to this journey, this onion. And if you take the time to go through it and flesh it out, it's incredible. I've never been much of a collectathon gamer ever in any game. I think that's pretty well documented, and I absolutely found every artifact that this game had. I couldn't get enough. I wanted more. I wanted so many more, and I imagine that I will play the second game much in the same way. And we'll talk about that here in a minute. The last thing I want to say before we leave it is I just want to talk a little bit about the impact of The Last of Us, not just on us as gamers, but also I think maybe on the industry, like an industry level. I was so caught up into The Last of Us. Like I've always said, the day I beat it, I'll never forget. I want to say I called out of work because all I wanted to do was listen to every spoiler cast and every review cast, and I wanted to talk to anybody. I remember I went to my GameStop and talked to the manager about the game. I just wanted to wrap myself in a cocoon of coverage and just hear everything. And I listened to, Neil Druckmann, any interview that he went on, and any, the IGN stuff, all of it. I could not get enough of it. The game was so big in terms of release. It sold so well. It had such great critical reception. The hype train that I was on, I think, was every bit as important as the entire, like, how great the game was also being there for the reception of all of this information and living it. It just made it so much more. And then they did, like, The Last of Us Live, and all the music came out, and I listened to the soundtrack and all of Gustavo's stuff. And then they did the live recording, which my wife got into because she's more of like a theater person, a music person. She might not be into games, so she could still experience the weight of the story when we watch these actors play it out on stage. And she even got caught up, and she was like, man, this is really, really good. And kind of alluding to the thing you said before, like it transcended video game. It became media, it became entertainment. And then, like the grounded documentary and all this stuff that came out. And again, maybe it's naive or ignorance on my part, but I can't remember a game at that time or before it that did that had that type of reception that could you just, like, we're going to do BioShock Live. We're going to light up a stage or have people act out scenes of BioShock. Like, I don't think that works as well. I don't know. Just all of that stuff. What do you think?
I think fandom previously for games had been different because a lot of games that had huge fans drawings were about, MMOs and those persistent online environments where you made the story, where it was the character you created and all of that. So everything around it was about your experience with the person or the thing that you created doing it. Whereas I think things changed a little bit with The Last of Us in that it was more about the characters and the actors who played them and the music surrounding it. It wasn't necessarily, yes, it was about how it impacted me, but it's how those characters impacted me, not what I imprinted onto the experience.
I never followed a voice actor into The Last of Us, ever. I may have known a few of them, maybe in coverage of reading up to the game, or if they came out at E3 or something. I never followed an actor. I immediately followed Troy Baker and Ashley Johnson and Neil Druckmann and everybody. And you remember they did they put out on YouTube like their outtakes, where they famously did that scene where they did it like on all opera music and they all sang it and everything. My wife watched it. So like we consumed all of this stuff. Like you're right, fandom. I'd never been a part of a group or a movement of fandom for anything in video games quite like that. There's the excitement that I felt for anything Last of Us at the time rivaled seeing like a Zelda demo at E3 come out of nowhere or something
Right.
like that. It just really set me off on a separate, different path, a separate journey. And I can't say it's even been rivaled since.
Mm-hmm.
If anything, I'm just kind of more in tune with what like Troy's done since then, or like
Right.
Uncharted. Like I start to apply that to other things, but it's not the same.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the same. All right, let's talk about the second one. Let's get into some actual good spoilery stuff. I want to get into the story. So we left off looking over the dam, Jackson County. We are led to believe that Ellie suspects that she knows what happened. She asks Joel.
Yep.
And he lies to her.
Liar, liar, pants on fire.
Scene. Scene.
Yep.
Now we have The Last of Us 2. So the first question I ask you is, did you even want a sequel? Like when you played The Last of Us, were you like, I can't wait to see where this goes? Or were you like, this is perfect?
I think I talked about this way back when this was revealed at PSX. I didn't initially. I was one of those people who didn't want a sequel. I thought the story was good as it was. I really liked how it ended. I really didn't feel that I needed another experience with these characters. Then they did that reveal trailer, and I had all sorts of feels about it. And I said, well, sometimes I don't know what I want, and you do. So thank you, Naughty Dog. I guess I will take a second Last of Us. That seems great. Thank you. So that I genuinely did not think I wanted one until they did that reveal trailer.
I absolutely wanted. I wanted one the day that I beat the first one. I would have bought another one right then and there. I was so hook, line, and sinker into this. I wanted all the things that they can give me, all of it. Mm-hmm. All right, so let's talk about the story before we get into what the trailer showed us. What the things we know. Let's talk about the things we don't know.
Right.
Where do you want to see? What do you want to see in part 2? Like, what's the journey you're anticipating, hoping? What are the questions you're hoping get answered, don't get answered?
I think this is the hard part, right? Because you think about all that they have shown in the trailers. I will say, so here's where the dichotomy for me is a little bit in my head, is that Neil very clearly came out and said, don't worry about what we're showing you. It's not necessarily what you think.
Yeah.
However, according to people who were at the hands-on day, the press who were there, he told them not to watch the reveal trailer. Or the release date trailer, excuse me. So that then makes me wonder, what does that mean? That he's, had recorded this video that said, don't worry, but then also told journalists, don't watch the release date trailer.
I love Neil so much.
He's
so good at this.
So what I do, here's what I will say I do hope. I will be very disappointed if this is as straightforward as it seems.
Oh, it's definitely.
I will say very. I will be disappointed. If they are just going to fridge Dina, I'm bummed. I really hope it's more than that.
Definitely not.
You definitely think it's not that?
Yeah, it's definitely not that.
I think there's a lot of things that go through my mind when I look at this is Dina actually a traitor, and that Ellie freaking out is them actually killing Joel after Dina betrayed her. Like, there's so many other things this could, and I don't even know, like, sometimes I don't even want to talk about this stuff because what if a wild guess ends up being right, and then someone's like, oh, I thought about that. Now, so I don't know.
I had similar thoughts, actually. I've actually had similar thoughts. All right, trying to think. I got a lot of things I want to say. I'm trying to think of the best order to say them, but I want to stick on this Dina thing since you already brought it up.
Yeah.
In the trailer, we see Dina for the second time.
Yep.
Her and Ellie are out. We are led to believe that they get taken or kidnapped or snatched or ambushed, but you don't necessarily see both.
Right. It almost seems like, oh, Dina got lost or something, and she's going to. But did she get lost? Or is she setting a trap?
Possibly, plausibly. Also, is Naughty Dog just messing with our minds, and are they completely unrelated?
Right. Who knows?
Like, maybe you just go find Dina and live happily ever after, and then this happens later on in the game. They totally could have split it. These could be completely unrelated, not connected in any way.
Right. We see Tommy back, so maybe something happens with Tommy. Who knows? There's so many things that it could be.
That's more lines that I was taking.
Okay.
I definitely don't think they're going to fridge Dina, and the reason that I don't is I looked at, I mean, the reason it's just hopeful optimism, but when you watch that first trailer in the barn, I rewatched it this morning for the first time since they showed it, really. And that moment where they have that little conversation while they're dancing, I was like, oh God, it's so good. Like, it's so good. There's no way that they would, she's an impactful character.
Right.
I do think maybe the overarching plot, if she's taken and Ellie's trying to save her, that might be true. That could be true. There's a lot that could go on the way there. In that barn trailer, it dawned on me that we're introduced to a new character. I forget his name, but he's talking to Ellie before she starts dancing with Dina.
The one who he gives out the guns and stuff in the... Yeah.
And he tells her that he spoke to her old man today. Now, when I first watched that, I thought, Joel.
Right.
I think most people should. Like, yeah, that's Joel. And then I realized he didn't say Joel. And I'm wondering, this is where my mind started going after this last trailer. Is it possible that we start the game with some sort of falling out between Joel and Ellie? Ellie constantly suspects, maybe to the point where it finally comes up. Maybe like the first part of this game is like pretty casual. Maybe you're not like completely into it. You know, maybe you're doing like these little go out and find supplies missions and whatnot, and it starts to set the hook.
Right.
I could see an issue where like maybe Joel can't like be around Ellie. Maybe he can't live with the constant, I don't know, regret or fear. Or maybe she finds out or presses him on it, and they have a falling out. Maybe her old man's Tommy. Maybe Joel's not around.
Yeah.
Maybe Joel's left. Maybe Tommy and his wife are like have helped raise. We're 5 years later, so maybe she stayed in Jackson, and maybe Joel went somewhere else.
Right.
Like the first game kind of alluded to. That's what he tried to do. He tried to dump her off in there now. I don't know if that's the case, but if it is the case, that would explain in the trailer his reveal seems so important. It doesn't seem like he's there a lot.
Right.
So maybe that's where he re-enters the picture. We're also introduced in multiple of these trailers, and then a lot of the hands-on that's kind of led me down this thought process is we know that there's multiple factions of people, and there's religious zealots and different like, I don't know, gangs or groups in different areas of the city.
Right.
You know, they're controlling their own stuff. Maybe Joel's one of theirs.
Yeah.
And maybe he turns on his own group to help Ellie. That's the other type of stuff that's been running through my head. There's a lot that could go here.
Right. Well, and one of the things I just think about, all of those characters from the Paris trailer, not a peep about them since.
They got to be introduced somehow.
Right. And they were important enough that they have been interviewed on things. They were like on panels. So they aren't nothing characters, but we haven't nothing about them since that trailer.
Yep.
So I'm very interested to see, is that, you know, like you had alluded to, a lot of people talk about, was that Ellie's mom?
Yeah.
So is this a
flashback? But
it seems really silly. I shouldn't say silly. It seems odd that they would put that much attention onto something that is just a flashback, and then we don't, and that's it. You know, so I'm very interested to see the role those characters play and what that means. And are they part of that group that Ellie is trying to get rid of? Like, what is going on?
Exactly. And I even thought like maybe Joel and Tommy have a disagreement. They seem like they do this a lot. It would be well within their characters to do so. Yeah. You know, like, so there's a lot of things a lot of variables I could see in play. And the one thing that I mentioned to Josh when he was talking about the possible spoiler on your show, I've seen Neil make that smile too many times leading up to The Last of Us, after The Last of Us, talking about The Last of Us 2. When he gets pressed on things he doesn't want to give away, he gives off, like, he's got to tell. He just gives off this sly smile, and like when he tells you not is all what you think it is, then it's not.
Well, and I think the nice thing about this situation in some ways is that, you know, previous game was Uncharted 4. They thought it was really important that they give a happy ending to that game.
Yeah.
There is no reason this game has to have a happy ending in any way, shape, or form. So I think this really gives them the opportunity to, I don't want to say do whatever they want in like a callous, don't care way, but really stretch their legs as far as narrative storytelling, what we expect of games, and really seeing, is there a way to break the typical narrative structure in a way we haven't seen before?
Could be a tragedy. Everybody could die at the end.
Well, and they have said that this game is about hate.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm so excited for this one because of that. I'm so excited. Like I said, I anticipate hearing a lot of people be like, I can't play this.
Right.
Because I think it's going to go there. And I'm excited to see somebody go there. I always feel like so many games, I think a lot of games can feel samey. You can swap out the characters and stuff, but a lot of them feel the same. We've been doing a lot of the same. This narratively might just crush it, and it might not be for everybody, and it probably isn't.
Right.
I want to know like the loose ends from the first game. I would love to see some cameo appearances, or at least some. I would love for Ellie and Joel at times to maybe even flash back into either memories or playable scenes from the old thing, like an illusion, like an allude back to any type of stuff like that. Just even maybe one little glimpse of like a little nostalgic moment, I think would be such a cool thing to do, like Uncharted does when they let you play, Crash Bandicoot or something. I would love if they had a moment, it's a really nice moment where they talk about Bill, or they talk about Sam, or Henry and things like that. That type of stuff, like that type of fan service, I'm hoping is in here, and it would be crazy good. Where do they? So that when they get to Jackson in the first game, what do they get? The car? They leaves Bill. It's not Billstown, right? You don't leave from Billstown to Jackson, or is that right? That's what my memory is, but I feel like maybe I'm missing a third of the game between those two.
Well, are you talking where are they immediately before Jackson, or Because they're. I mean. They go from the university. I
thought they went from Jackson to the university. I think that's right. Yeah, because they get out of the car, right?
You're right. Yep.
So from Billstown, which is like what, St. Louis, something like that. Something like that. And they get to Wyoming. What happened in between there? I would love to know.
Right.
Like even a memory, a story, a note, a photograph. If they had a photograph that you could flip over and had like a little pair, I would. That's the type of stuff I'm really excited for. It's like really dumb stuff. Everybody's like, "What's happened to Dina?" I'm like, "I want to know what happened on that car ride."
Ellie has a journal that you can go back and read information about like all of the things that happened.
Kyle, you're making my heart warm. That's so good. Yes, I want Ellie to have a journal. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. That's perfect. All right, getting to the trailer. They showed off all this new gameplay.
Yeah.
Tons of stuff you can break down. I'm going to start with the enemy AI because I think it's the most important. You see characters working together. A lot has been said in the reaction of those folks that went hands-on. They all have names. The dogs have names. Everybody's saying like, "Oh my God, she killed Seth. He's over there and he fell off the roof." They're working together. They call each other. It's different. When I first saw it, my first impression was, "Ooh, this game's gonna be much harder than the first one."
I feel like it's going to be as well. From listening to some of the people who played, everyone talked about how they died a lot.
Yeah,
a lot. But they said the respawn was really fast.
That's good. That's good.
But yeah, there was definitely a lot of. It is not as simple. Oh, I'm gonna go over here, sneak, take this person out. Go over here, sneak, take this person out. There's a little bit of that because it's still a game. You still kind of want to feel, that you're BA a little bit. But yeah, it definitely sounds like there are traps that are set. They flank you and they pincer you, and that weird like that. I think having the dogs, which I know we're going to talk about in a second, and having that scent trail, like having the scent trail, so it's not just I'm going to sit and wait here until like I have to keep moving.
There's no safe space. You can't fall back to any position and kind of regroup. That's exactly my takeaway. It's like that's out. And as somebody who's, I openly admit that I don't think I'm like super good at playing video games.
Right.
I did that a lot in The Last of Us. My first playthrough, there was a lot of moments where I was like, I got to get away. I got to make some stuff. I got to figure this out for a moment. Right. I don't know if you're going to be able to catch your breath.
Right. Well, and there were, and I think even Neil has said that sometimes your best option is just to run. Like to run away. That is your best option.
And
just to leave.
We're not trained or conditioned as gamers to ever do that. There's no game where it's just like run away.
There are 6 enemy AI in this area. I need to take out 6 enemy AI. Here I go.
And if more come over the fence, you just keep doing it. Like
just keep going. Where are more bullets? Let's do this.
Oof. The dogs are interesting. because when they first showed us this gameplay trailer, I immediately latched on to, I think I posted like 7 GIFs of Ellie proning in this grass. Have we ever seen grass?
Oh man! And then when she rolls onto her side to use her
so
bow and
good.
arrow, oh my god! I know it's like one of those things that it's just this dumb little but I watched it. I was like, that looks so amazing.
Never done anything like that in a game before.
I haven't either.
Naughty Dog, what Naughty Dog did for water, they're about to do to grass.
Yeah,
Naughty Dog's grass is better than your grass. I've never seen anything like this before, and this seems so. And it's gonna provide such a level of immersion. And they mentioned that like hiding in the grass, it's not like Uncharted, it's not like Assassin's Creed. Like if they walk up, they totally see you.
They'll see you, yeah.
like, hey, we see you. You're in the grass, and they'll shoot you. And I expect to die as I'm like in the grass on Metal Gear. Someone's just walk up and shoot me right in the head. Man, so the proning stuff, having be able to hide low to the ground under cars and stuff, it makes sense to now introduce dogs. That makes doing that tactic so much more of a risk and so much more scary, because they're low to the ground and they can come get you. I know Neil said that you don't have to kill the dogs. I don't understand how you don't kill I think you have to. I think most people have to.
My guess is going to be you can probably completely stealth through those sections and not kill anything, would be my guess.
That'd be cool.
So
I'd like to at least try to do that once.
Yeah,
it's not normally my thing.
Right. And maybe I'm wrong, but that would be my guess, is that in those sections, if you want to, you could probably either completely or near completely stealth through them. Maybe there's a dude at the end or something you'd have to take out, but for the most part, you can kind of wiggle your way around. But I think it's going to be hard because, I am so conditioned in stealth games to, I'm going to sit here and observe everything and figure out people's patterns and do all this stuff. And it really doesn't seem like you're going to get the chance to do that.
And they may not have a pattern.
Right.
Like this enemy eye is next. That's the stuff. More so than like what the graphics look like and whatnot. The AI and seeing that's the type of stuff where I go, that's a PlayStation 5 game. If they had come out and told me this is a PlayStation 5 game, I would have understood it.
Right.
Because we've never seen a game like this. There's no direct comparison. We've seen similar games. We've seen games in genre, but nothing to this detail and this level.
Right.
And that's what they do. I know you mentioned this heartbeat thing. Can you tell me about this?
So basically everything in the game has a heartbeat. And when you are doing actions, it increases or decreases your heartbeat appropriately, which impacts how much noise you make, how loud you breathe, how steady it is when you're trying to shoot. But it's not just for Ellie, it's even for the AI, for the infected. Everything has one. So if you are in a situation where you have, you're trying to sneak through something and you get caught and seen, and one of the AI is like, oh, I'm going to go flank her, and they run, like you can hear them, you'll be able to hear them coming up, breathing behind you. Their accuracy won't be as good because their heart is beating so hard.
Crazy.
So everything is that heartbeat sensor, or that heartbeat that every character has, will impact the gameplay and how they interact with one another.
It's modifying everything.
Yeah.
Wow, it's insane. These moments that we were talking about, look, these things we see, they're open-ish.
Wide linear. Thanks for that fancy industry term, Naughty Dog.
And a lot of people started immediately going, I know I did from the trailer. This is the part in the trailer where you see Ellie on a horseback and she's walking what seems to be an open area cityscape under a bridge, and you see a background. And it's hard not to think Lost Legacy and go like, are they going this way? Or they've went on record and said since then, all the articles, headlines, it's not open world.
Right.
Don't say it's open world, but it's definitely more open and bigger environments than we've seen before.
Well, I mean, you could even, I think, go to like a Tomb Raider, right?
Yeah.
Not open world, but a little bit of a sandbox if you want to play around in, and maybe you have some side missions that you can do if you want to. And that's kind of what it sounds like, is that you might have, and maybe even, I haven't gotten that far in Gears 5. I'm literally at the point where it goes to openish. Oh, yeah. But maybe that's type of thing where there's a couple areas that are a little bit bigger, a little more for you to explore in. Maybe a side mission or two happens. But I think that would make sense, especially if you figure she's starting at a settlement, or it seems at least she's starting, at a settlement, has some responsibilities, maybe picks up some missions to go pick up some supplies for individual people within, the settlement, has to do some hunting, whatever. It seems like that would make sense for what the game is trying to accomplish and kind of how she's living her life, at least what we presume to be at the start of the game.
Do you like that?
We'll see.
Yeah,
I think it's my like Tomb Raider. I like, so I like the Tomb Raider games, and I kind of like how that is. I will see if I like that for a Last of Us game. I think part of what I enjoy about The Last of Us is, since it is pretty, the first one was very linear, obviously, so you kind of always knew-ish, okay, now we're going to be in tension, now we're not in tension, now we're in tension again, now we're not, now we are again. So if you can go a really long time without having that tension there necessarily, or choosing to be in the tension, I think for me might potentially hit pacing a little bit. And they said obviously this game's going to be huge. That's what they said, their longest game ever, which 15 to 18 hours I think is kind of where Uncharted 4 Last of Us was. So it could be 20.
25.
Some people are saying it's going to be 40. I don't know. I don't know if I want that for 40 hours. But we'll see. I think it's all going to depend on how it feels, and I trust Naughty Dog, so we'll see. But I think of games like, I'm playing Borderlands 3 right now. Getting to level 20 was great. The next few levels weren't bad. Man, like the last 7 or so have been an absolute grind, and I'm about 30 hours in, and I just want this game to be over at this point.
Wow.
So I think that it's going to depend on how that goes. If they can keep me engaged and it doesn't feel laborious after 30 hours and it's bigger than that, great. But again, I trust them to make the right decision. I think, even though for some people Uncharted 4 started to like outlast this welcome a little bit. So
I think I'm right there with you on this particular topic. When I first heard about it, it kind of made me wince a little.
Mm-hmm.
I want Naughty Dog to I want them to keep the linear nature. I want them to tell the story, and I want that to be the focus.
Right.
I'm open with having some open-ish areas. I think player agency is cool. They showed like you can run and jump. That's a big thing for Ellie. She can jump. There's a jump button, and you can like hop through windows and sneak through cracks and come through shelves. And so like there's a lot you can do to put some distance between you and your adversaries and all that. Mm-hmm. The thing that scared me, and here's what I don't want. I don't want to open up and look at a map hub and look at targets and waypoints. Mm-hmm. It's not because I don't like it. It's not The Last of Us. That's not like, I don't know. And maybe I'll play it and I'll love it, but that's not what The Last of Us is. I don't want to like Assassin's Creed it where I open up a map and like, I got to travel over here and here are 6 things I can do at any moment. What I would rather have them do is deliver me the similar thing in a more linear structure where the story takes me to this open area thing, and I have 2 or 3 objectives that I can live out in this area, choose to do stuff if I want, and then I get back on the linear train and keep going. I don't want it to like, choose your own adventure. You can take any of these 6 paths, and eventually you all come back to the same place, because then I feel like we're losing what made The Last of Us so great. Is I want them to tell me the story in the structure and the pattern and order that they want to tell it to me in. I like the idea that they can just add 6 things that you can do in any order and not affect the story. I don't know how much I believe in that.
Right.
Because then it just feels like, well, does any of it have any meaning?
Well, and who knows? maybe they want to add all that stuff because they want you at some point in the game to feel a sense of monotony because it's going to be effective for what happens next. I don't know. I have no idea. Sure. We talk all the time about letting let game developers execute their vision, and letting that happen. But I also appreciate, there are certain reasons I play certain games. There are certain things I want from certain series, and that doesn't mean they can't change and they can't evolve and they can't do that. It also just means though that recognize I have certain expectations when I'm coming to play X game. Yeah, yeah.
And like I said, just like you said, you didn't want a sequel and they showed it to you. Maybe we play it and we love it. Maybe we're here. Right. 6 months from now, we're talking about how amazing it is. We have the open world. We can go walk. I mean, because it's interesting because it is like somewhat of a juxtaposition for me because I do want to walk around that world. Mm-hmm. I do want to explore that world. I would love to walk around and find newspapers. Like I want to know so much about the history and things that have happened and what's happened in 5 years. Like it's been 5 years. What's going on? So I wouldn't mind taking a walk. I just don't want I don't know. I want the story to still stay.
Yeah. Well, and they have said that it is going to have similar pacing.
They did.
Is what they've said. So.
Yep. You've already mentioned the game's length. The game's coming out on 2 discs.
Yeah.
Big game.
Big
Lots
game.
of things. They got grass, man. That grass is going to be like, detail. It's going to be huge.
One disc is just grass.
Just grass.
Grass textures. That's all it is.
And then the big announcement that they made is there's be no multiplayer.
Right.
For this one.
Yep.
They followed it up by saying that Naughty Dog will bring a multiplayer experience. We will see their multiplayer chops at some point, which,
yep.
What do you think that means?
I think that means that we're going to see something when PS5 launches.
Do you think it's going to be an add-on or a bonus to the base game?
That's the thing I don't know and I can't decide. And it's PlayStation, so part of me says they're going to be jerks. And they're going to say, hey, here's The Last of Us Part 2 again, but this time with multiplayer for the PS5 if you want to get the best The Last of Us 2 experience.
I think it's a separate game.
I think ideally, I do think it probably is going to just be a completely separate experience. It honestly, I could see it potentially being some sort of free-to-play PS5 launch thing.
Oh, that's good. I didn't think about
that. To try to, that you can... Because they said obviously things are going to be backward compatible, but maybe this is something you can only play on PS5. That would make sense. Version.
You got to think after all this long development, there's probably a lot of pressure on them to possibly just make this a launch game for PS5. We've debated it for 2 years now, whether or not it was ever going to come to the fore. I personally would be really upset. I mean, like I said, I bought my PlayStation 4 to play The Last of Us. Mm-hmm. If I then had to buy another console, regardless of how great the PlayStation 4 has been, if I had to buy another console to play it, I would have been angry.
Right.
Still totally would have bought it though.
I know you would have. You've been really upset while you were purchasing that.
Totally would have bought it anyway.
But I think we're kind of into that point now, right? Because now that we have The Last of Us Part 2 release date, and Iron Man VR release date, and obviously this is what we're talking about today, but like Ghost of Tsushima. We haven't heard anything about that game in a long time.
PlayStation 5 game.
Is that now a PlayStation 5 launch game? So.
Yep. When I heard this, I took a couple of things here. I wonder. I don't think that they've taken this long to make this game, and they had to cut the multiplayer. Right? I just don't know. Like it's been a long time this game's been in the hopper. I'm wondering if they're not trying to do something new. I actually think this might be some sort of a spin-off or a sequel. My impression was this is gonna be a different game. I'm thinking of like a co-op based. Like they'll have factions, of course. People really liked it. I didn't. I played one match, I think, to get a trophy. Right. So I didn't really play it, but I know people do like it, and it was popular. Mm-hmm. I was even thinking of like how could they expand upon it, and maybe they release like a multiplayer-centric game, like what Resident Evil is doing, like with their 4-player co-op. I wonder if they could come out with like a Last of Us like Outbreak Day, or like some sort of series where maybe you go back to Outbreak Day and you play like what happened when this started, and maybe you have to escape a city, or you have waves of enemies, or clear a building or something like that, and you play with your friends and they give you some story.
Right.
And it's the multiplayer for The Last of Us Part 2, but it's different characters, it's extra story, and they sell it as a completely different game.
Yeah, well, and for better or for worse, like what does The Last of Us set us up for perfectly if we really want to? A battle royale.
That's good.
I think they could easily do something like that. They could easily do some sort of survival style game where you have to kind of like they had that mode in Tomb Raider. And obviously that wouldn't be multiplayer necessarily, but where you are having to make fires and get water and do all of this while you go and explore. There's so many things that could be done that fit well with that, with the setting of The Last of Us, that I agree.
Imagine if you could play as Bill or Ezra or Ish or Rachel, or
right.
There's so much Sam and Henry, and you could actually drop this universe in.
Yeah, absolutely.
Play Sarah.
Yeah.
People would buy that game.
Yeah. And I think I kind of look at this a little bit maybe like Cyberpunk, in the sense of I think they probably were developing a multiplayer for sure, and then just realized this is not, if we want this to launch with the single player,
it's going to take long.
It's going to take way longer, so we're just going to spin this out. It will come at a later date, and we'll tell you more about it when we know more about what we're doing.
I mean, netcode balancing, all of that stuff is insanely hard.
Yep, it is. And the Naughty Dog multiplayer games, whether it be Uncharted or The Last of Us, they're surprisingly good for what they are. They're way better than they usually have any right to be. Uncharted 4 multiplayer actually was a lot of fun. I don't think it got a ton of play. I don't know that it had a huge user base, but I played a decent amount of it, and it was way better than it had any right to be. It was a good, fun time. And I think, The Last of Us, like you said, had a very strong following of people who were playing it. Not a huge group, but a very consistent, regular group. And I'm interested to see what they do, because I think their multiplayer stuff is typically a little undersold for how good it is.
Cool. Yeah, whenever if I think Donnie's going to try to play a Last of Us multiplayer game, I immediately think Gears Horde, a co-op survival type thing. Like, you're 4 survivors, you're dropped in an area, and you've got to, outlast this many things to get out.
100%.
I would play that game.
All of these, all of these things work.
I'd play
all of them
game
are things they could do.
And if they sprinkled any sort of narrative in there, I'd be absolutely there.
Yeah, you almost go to a Call of Duty Zombies where they have the narratives, kind of strewn about throughout the map, and you're kind of.
If they gave us a 10 mission campaign, and then you can play multiplayer for endless amounts of collectibles and upgrades and all that, I would at least play the campaign. I would absolutely sit and finish the campaign with anybody. So I want to end with: do you think this will be the end of The Last of Us, like the franchise, or at least the end of Ellie and Joel's Last of Us?
I think it potentially could be the end of Ellie and Joel. I don't think this will be the end of The Last of Us as a franchise, though. They've already said, if we're talking pure video game, definitely not. They've already kind of talked about the idea of potentially doing with PlayStation Productions something in that world. And I think it's a rich environment for them to explore. And like you've said, they could do, DLC of maybe similar to how the first game's DLC went back.
Yeah.
Maybe this game's DLC goes back to what happened in those 5 years.
Yeah.
There's so many things that they could do. I don't think this will be, it's too valuable a property for them. I assume we will continue to see The Last of Us in some way, shape, or form. Whether we'll still have Ellie and Joel, that I'm not quite certain will still be there moving forward.
I kind of agree. I feel like this is the end of this story with Ellie and Joel, and I think if we have future Last of Us, we might pick up on somebody else's story or journey. So Neil got promoted, right?
Yeah, he's vice president at Naughty Dog, I think now.
So he's still the creative director for Last of Us Part 2.
Correct.
But stands to reason that he would not be the creative director on Last of Us Part 3 or whatever.
Or whatever. Probably not. Maybe part of him being a vice president is he still wants to be able to exercise his creative stuff when he wants to, maybe.
Sure.
So, but I assume they have done a pretty good job of, hibernate. If you think about where people from Naughty Dog have gone from a narrative perspective, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, the single player campaign is being done by former Naughty Dog people. The Avengers game is being done by former Naughty Dog people as far as that story goes. So they do a good job, it seems like, of incubating those folks internally in their studio. And I have no doubts they have many people, very capable people who could step up.
And it takes a lot more than one person, but
right, for sure.
I'm only bringing up to make the point. I would be at least somewhat, I wouldn't say weary or anything. I would just keep a close eye. And I actively monitor, if the next one, whenever that is, 7 years from February, 7 years from there, if they are at some point, different, what does that mean, for the franchise?
Yeah,
just something to think about.
Yeah, and then I think of Kurt, who I can never say his last name correctly. He was creative lead on The Lost Legacy, and now is overworking on this. Obviously, some people not The Lost Legacy is their favorite Uncharted game.
Yeah.
So I think that there's still definitely some good people there, but you're right. Having Neil maybe potentially not as involved, Bruce with his with his tweets and things like that, or maybe he'll come back and
that would be cool. That would tickle my heart if he actually announced that he was coming back and he picked back up. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
When you watch Grounded, you see how it seems, at least, and maybe it's just appearance, but I don't think so. Neil is very, very involved. This is his baby.
Yes.
When he's absolutely directing to the nth, to the final voice line. Here's how I need you to deliver this to tell my story.
Right.
I think doesn't he have some sort of creative control over the media rights or the movie rights? Because they've been trying to get this project up, and I think the last time I heard about it, they said that they are working with Naughty Dog on any potential movie script. That now Neil is actually being involved. Where just 2 years ago they were just going to take his his idea and run with it. Now he's very much over there too.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and that just has to do with the creation of PlayStation Productions, that they now
sense.
have more say in that, and will probably pull more from the talent. But I think Neil, and I think a lot of studios have this. It's, Neil is the Hideo Kojima. He is the Cory Barlog. He is that person. Like, if you watch, Raising Kratos, you see how involved, and how Cory, I think, very freely talked about how there are people on this team who probably don't like me very much, because that is just how, I am when it comes to my creative vision and all these other things. And, I hate using the word obsession, but for better or worse, that is often what amazingly, like, great pieces of media are often created by people who are obsessed with what they're creating. And I think, for better or for worse, that's why our crunch happens in the gaming industry, because people care so much about what they're doing and are so passionate about it that they don't feel like they're being taken advantage of, because they are wanting to do it sometimes. Maybe not always.
They want you to recognize how amazing this grass is.
Right. Yeah, they do. And it sounds kind of, but it's true.
It's absolutely true.
And a part of me always feels really bad that when I'm running through or rushing through an environment, I'm like, somebody probably spent days, weeks, months on this thing, and I just blew through it because I was being chased by whatever.
You just reminded me of a different thought. Not that I want to rehash this whole thing, but this whole idea that these areas, when you're being attacked and whatnot, that you're constantly on the move. I'm wondering how that's going to make me feel, because I combed every. I do this often. You've seen me when I play Horizon and whatnot. I comb every inch of The Last of Us. Every door, every shiv, every bottle, every artifact, every medallion. I mean, I know that game from top to bottom.
Yep.
I check every drawer, every cabinet, everything.
So you will just have to kill everyone.
I will have to. There's no way. Because then I can't go walk through the kitchen and see what they left on the stove when they left or anything like that. I got to see all that, and the graffiti and the artwork, the messages that people left, and like the missing people, and we're looking for you, and that all sets the tone. If you just ran by it, you're missing the point. I hate to tell somebody you're playing the game wrong, but you're playing the game wrong. It's like, don't do that. You're missing so much of the world and the. Oh God. Like the daycare through the kids' drawings of the stores. Dude, it's so good. Yeah. If you just ran through the sewers and killed the clickers and moved on, you missed the whole point of that scene. That's the type of stuff. Man, oh, it's so good. I would have bet $1 million after finishing The Last of Us that The Last of Us was the next Uncharted. They had Uncharted 1, 2, 3, 4, and Lost Legacy, and I thought we'd have Last of Us. I actually thought we'd have Last of Us 2 already, and we'd be looking at Last of Us 3 for PlayStation 5 and then going. And I agree. I do think that the franchise is so good. I mean, I think you already see it. The collector's edition stuff sold out same day. And I think they'll relist some. I think it's too early for them to be sold out, but I don't know. The thing that gives me a little hesitation and pause, when they did release it, like the next day, it was out in like 10 minutes. Like tops.
The advantage they have is that it is still a few more months out than, when they've announced other games. So theoretically, they could produce more if they needed to. I think for you, and I know you're still holding out hope for a, Tilo 2 PS4 Pro.
Do you think we're going to get one?
I think if you just look at how close to release the Death Stranding one was announced, I definitely think that, even like the God of War one wasn't announced until 6 weeks or 8 weeks before it came out.
Absolutely going to get one. It is. They've done one for every marquee release on the system, except for games that I wouldn't call like marquee releases, like Days Gone, right? Like, you're not going to get like a special edition console for that. It's a brand new IP. You don't really, we didn't really know how that was going to go. Did Gran Turismo get one, a console?
I don't think so, but also that game.
So maybe that's not the one. Yeah, but God of War got one, Spider-Man got one, Persona 5 just got 3 of them. Like, they're
only in Japan,
but they're there. You could get one if you wanted one. You could buy it.
You could order. You could import it.
Uncharted 4 got one.
Yes.
It was all blue.
Yes.
Yeah.
But like Horizon didn't get one. But it was also new IP, so
that's true. Horizon didn't get one, but I would have thought they would. I would have made sense to me to do one. I don't know. I'm hopeful. I want one. Now, I'm also hesitant because I don't want it to look bad. That's the other part. Like, it's going to break my heart. It's going to break my heart if they announce one and I hate it. I'm just going to be so distraught.
What would you want it to look like?
I want it to look like Ellie's tattoo. I want it to be minimal. I don't want it to be like, I don't want it to be glossy. I don't want it to be some bright ass color. Yeah. Like, I know people love the Spider-Man one. I want the opposite of the Spider-Man. Yeah. Don't do that at all.
I generally thought, like, when I think of one, Ellie's tattoo is what I think of for it, just because I think that is still, for this game, the most iconic thing for this game thus far is Ellie's tattoo.
I always go back to, so I have the Outbreak theme on my PlayStation 4 that I still don't think has been topped. It's the original Outbreak theme with the cordyceps virus that
that
spawned. Yeah. Yep. I would love that type of design. That's what I'm looking for. But I think a matte black Pro with like maybe I want to say glossy, but maybe like a shiny finished black tattoo layer over top of it.
Oh, that'd be kind of cool. Okay.
So like you can see it, but you can't see it, but it's there. Right. Something like that is kind of where my mind is. And if they just release a console with like Ellie's face plastered across the side of it or something, I'm going to be super pissed.
The grunge theme.
I hate that. I did not like the grunge theme. I was so let down. That's the type of stuff that I get scared about. I don't want like a printed face. I don't want just a giant. Well, I don't want to say I want a giant logo, because if the logo was, I don't want to say Last of Us Part 2. I don't usually like wording, but if even they did like a firefly symbol, just a black console with a white firefly symbol or something like that, I would totally be down for it. But I want it to look like it. I don't know. This is where my fan bias gets in. I want it to be like art. I want it to be. Yeah. I want it to look like the game. Yeah. And that's where I think that tattoo, like, and if like, especially if they maybe did it like diagonally across the console instead of like straight, you know, maybe like wrapped around it of some sort or something like that. That would just be awesome. That's what I'm wanting. If they do just make a giant, bright, glossy console or something like that, I'm probably not going to get it. I'll just get a regular Pro. But I am definitely getting a Pro for this. And I'm even contemplating getting an SSD. I think that's kind of what I want to play this game as good as I can possibly play it.
Right. All right.
That does it, man. That's everything we want to do. It was an hour. It's almost 90 minutes. Almost 90 minutes of Last of Us talk. And I feel like I could sit here and talk to you for another 90 minutes on it.
Yeah, I agree. I'm
looking at my notes, see if there's anything I left out. I think that's good. I think it's everything I really wanted to say. I'm just, Kyle.
Yes, sir.
I'm really, really excited.
I know. And hey, I just want to say, I really appreciate the fact that I know you are known as a Nintendo guy. I appreciate the fact that you don't reserve, like, you are non-discriminate in your hype for things you're excited about, whether it be on Xbox, on PlayStation, on Nintendo. And I really appreciate that, because I think that's very hard for many people to do. And even though you are like I said, definitely known as a Nintendo guy,
it's my first love.
I appreciate you get hyped about things you're hyped about, and that's great.
But The Last of Us is also my favorite game. And I would have bought a PlayStation 5. It is the only thing they could have done to get me to buy a PlayStation 5 on launch day, is to make The Last of Us 5 a PlayStation 5 launch game. I totally would have bought one. I probably would have sold it, but I totally would have bought one. I totally would have. I 100% recognize that I would have dropped whatever amount of money to do that, to play that game.
Right.
And I'm really happy that they didn't. Not because I don't want to buy a PlayStation 5. I will always buy all the consoles eventually. It's just not in my current plans. I'm thinking of PlayStation 5 maybe like year 2.
Yeah,
I'm thinking of waiting a bit, letting some of the releases, because I wish I would have done that more often this gen. So that's the only reason I'm thinking about it next gen, is maybe just spacing out of it, because I say this all the time, it's a lot to juggle, 3 consoles, Stadia and whatnot. Like, it's getting a lot. Plus the new streaming thing, like, who knows? Like, I'm also thinking I might just get an Xbox and just stream PlayStation games and Stadia. Like, I may even do stuff like that. I may just, I don't know. We'll see. The landscape is fluid at best.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
now.
Yes.
So
yes.
That'll do it for PSXP Outbreak Day. I hope you guys look forward to the changes that we're making to the show's format and the new hosts and guests. Like I said, I don't have confirmation to announce anything, but we're going to put this out on their satellite feed. Will be the first thing that goes on their feed. It's kind of be a guinea pig to test the feed, make sure all the bells and whistles are working, and then we'll promote it a bunch and put it out there. And you guys make sure that you follow the new PlayStation Experience podcast, have its own standalone feed, and obviously you can listen to it on the PSVG podcast network. So that'll do it for us, Kyle. Thanks for joining me on this little chat.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, sir.
I'm just a poor, away wayfaring stranger, traveling through this world of woe. There is no sickness, no toil, no danger in that bright land to which I go. I'm going there to see my mother. She said she'd meet me when I come. I'm just a going over Jordan. I'm just a going over home. I know dark clouds will gather round me. I know my way is rough and steep, but beauteous fields lie just before me, where God's redeemed their vigils keep. I'm going there to see my Father. I'm going there, no more to roam. So I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home.
I'll soon be free from earthly trials. This body rests in the old churchyard. I'll drop this cross of self-denial and go singing home to God. I'm going there to see my Savior. I'm going there, no more to roam. I'm just a going over Jordan. I'm just a going over. I'm just a
going over Jordan. I'm just a going over home.
I'm just a going